100% behind Q. He's working for the president. He's working for our country.
Alien life, like pedophiles, and it just seeks to tie all of that together.
Welcome, listener, to the 91st chapter of the QAnon Anonymous podcast, The Point of Q with Chapo Trap House episode. As always, we are your hosts, Jake Rockatansky,
Will Miniker,
Julian Fields,
Matt Christman,
and Travis View.
So this week, we have something special for you. We invited our friends over at Chapo Trap House to sit down and talk a bit about where we're at with Q, what have been some of the brighter recent developments in the conspiracy theory, and where do we go next? And also, I think we try to tackle the question of, is QAnon completely useless? Are we to throw it out whole cloth, or are we to study the ways in which it correlates with reality? Then, at the end, we will finish with the absolute dessert, which is, of course, a Jake story featuring both Matt and Will. But before all that,
QAnon News.
First up, we have the big news of the week. Of course, QAnon followers elated as Department of Justice drops its case against Michael Flynn.
Putting justice back into the Department of Justice.
They are over the moon.
I'm so
happy.
happy.
Never seen them so hot and horny in a long, long time.
Well,
it's good.
Because it's something. It's something. There's a balloon. It's floating into the sky. The string is almost out of reach. You almost have lost it forever. And then they got something.
Yeah. So what happened was, of course, Michael Flynn was facing sentencing for pleading guilty in 2017 for lying to federal investigators about his contacts with a Russian diplomat. But he has since recanted his guilty plea and hired as his lawyer Sidney Powell, who has repeatedly retweeted QAnon accounts. Now, at the time, that seemed like a real Hail Mary move, but it paid off for him in a big way just this last week when the Justice Department abandoned their prosecution and argued in a new filing that he should have never been charged. Department of Justice officials, including Attorney General William Barr, concluded that the FBI's questioning of Flynn just 4 days after Trump's inauguration lacked proper investigative basis.
Yeah, it shouldn't have been done by Obama.
So,
in his bathroom.
Yeah.
It was weird that he invited Flynn up there.
It was weird that he tortured Flynn for 8 hours.
So, of course, this is, as you can imagine, has been hugely validating for the QAnon community who have long seen Michael Flynn as a wronged hero who was persecuted by the Obama administration. Mm-hmm. For example, here is what QAnon promoter Joe M. said under a new Twitter handle.
Yoo-hoo, trolls. Form an orderly line right here with your apologies ready. We told you Jen Flynn was innocent. Next up, we also told you Comey, Brennan, Obama, and Clinton will be prosecuted to the fullest extent for crimes against humanity and treason.
I love it. It goes back to like really all QAnon followers want is people to line up with their apologies ready.
Yeah.
There it is. I mean,
I'm
plain
sorry.
and simple. Line up
with your apologies, and then right behind me after I go, that's right, you were wrong. There's a gallows. You step up.
So now I'll be the first to admit that I was pretty owned by this turn of events. So in my younger and more naive days,
you bet somebody some money or something.
I mean,
someone was dragging this back up.
I had known this previously. Like Trump, he fired Flynn for lying, and then Trump said that Flynn lied to the FBI. And then Pence said that Flynn lied, and then Flynn pled guilty to lying twice. And then
so you thought he lied,
and then stated he was entrapped by the FBI. And then Inspector General Horowitz said that the investigation that led to his prosecution was properly predicated. So because of all of that, I felt safe in my assumption that Flynn would be sentenced. But that assumption was misplaced. I now realize.
Wrong.
Well,
you lose this game show, sir. Go home. You get nothing.
You were playing by a different set of rules.
I was.
You thought things make sense.
But I read? I mean, of course, all of the libs are so sad about this because they were so wrong, and but they did say that that the judge could still technically sentence Flynn, right?
Yeah. The prosecution, they have to offer a filing, and then the judge has to sign off on it, basically.
Right.
But I'm told that would be unlikely. But this is already a sort of an unprecedented turn of events.
I mean, you're going to be saying the same kind of shit when he becomes like engraved into Mount Rushmore 4 months from now.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I see people on Twitter talking about Judge Sullivan like they did Avenatti and all of the kind of like week-long heroes where they're like, up to you, Judge Sullivan. Like, wait, do the right thing. And it's
now they're spinning into a straight up like they're going to arrest Obama and or Clinton to make a show thing of it to build their base before the election. I really I really think we're all sliding into this, huh?
Yeah,
It's just
we're
we're all
all-
just a nasty, muddy pit, and we're gonna all
Come
just-
on in.
Absolutely, it's Woodstock.
I certainly have been humbled enough to not offer any more predictions.
Yeah, he will
know-
never again predict anything.
Travis-
In fact, he no longer thinks it's wrong what Epstein did.
Travis has like mud on like his shoes, maybe a little bit on his socks. Julian's got it up to his kneecaps at least. He's thinking about wading in further, and I'm just covered in mud. I look like Arnold Schwarzenegger hiding from the Predator.
So a lot of QAnon people, they had claimed that Q had predicted this turn of events. So I read through all the Q drops about Flynn to see if this was true, and I would have to delete my account, or if I would continue being insufferably smug. And you'll never guess what I chose. So I noticed something when I read all the drops. So Q said that, actually never said that Flynn wouldn't be sentenced, or that the case against him would be dropped, or that he would be exonerated, or anything like that. In fact, none of the drops about Flynn are inconsistent with Flynn getting sentenced. So this is just another case of like Q employing like the cold reading trick of speaking about the subject matter in vague, suggestive, cryptic phrases, and then QAnon followers interpreting them as predictions after the fact, Nostradamus style. So I'm going to give you two examples. So these are the most cited examples of Q's prognostication abilities, lest I be accused of cherry picking. Here's the most frequently cited Q drop that's supposed to be a prediction of these events.
Who knows where the bodies are buried? Flynn is safe. We protect our patriots. Q.
So I mean, the problem with that is that,
I don't know. That seems pretty clearly like you're wrong.
well,
He said Flynn is safe. He said don't worry about it, and he's right.
But if hypothetically, if Flynn was sentenced and he didn't get prison time, you could say, well, Q said
Right.
Flynn was safe from going to prison, and he didn't.
Listen, Flynn
He
could
just
still
got
get hit by a
probation,
bus.
just
Bad
like
things
Q
can
said.
still happen to Flynn. But let's be honest, this is the first step towards Flynn being exonerated, and we all fucking know it. And it hurts. It's not fun, but we have to
But
face it.
that's the thing. Even if Flynn is like exonerated and Spygate is real, and
He
this
might get hit
was
by a
all
bus.
set up, none of the Q drops actually said that.
I think both of you guys are wrong. I think what Q meant. I think what Q meant when he says safe is safely nestled between the shoulder blades of a giant dragon, flying over the Moroccan mountains. That's what he meant. He's safe on the wings of a dragonfly.
All right, moving on to our next story. Of course, this is so exciting. QAnon following ex-Green Beret mercenary takes part in failed coup attempt in Venezuela.
It's a long sentence.
I mean,
a lot of work there.
It is, but it's like
That's insane.
you break the. So you may have read about this. So on May 3rd, a group of mercenaries led by the private security firm Silvercorp USA participated in a botched attempt to infiltrate Venezuela as part of a doomed mission to topple the government of President Nicolas Maduro. So the raid was carried out on 2 boats launched from Colombia, and state intelligence agencies, as well as the Associated Press, had advance notice of the plot.
Yeah, he tweeted Trump. Yeah, this is one of the most incredible and bizarre things, because I mean, I lived in Venezuela for a couple years, and to have this podcast somehow tie back into Venezuela in the dumbest fucking possible. I mean, just the dumbest fucking way. Not like, oh, we have a QAnon movement in Venezuela. No, even dumber. Let's get a veteran who has his Veterans Affairs card in his fucking wallet get picked up on the goddamn shores of fucking Venezuela. And then we just look it up, and he has his Instagram up, his fucking Twitter's up, and he's following hashtag
Is it
Q Army and QAnon 8kun. Now that is the most specific.
Yes.
That's your hand in the bag. That's you're fucking
You're
caught.
right. If he was just sort of following some QAnon accounts, maybe I could excuse it. But no, he's like, I want to follow everyone who posts with Q Army and QAnon 8kun.
I want to read whoever, any piece of shit trash posts
Also-
with this hashtag. I want to see it.
Also, I don't know how military secret operations work, but I'm assuming that you don't bring your like passport and driver's license when you're going to like perform like a secret op on like foreign soil.
Dude, the guy literally in the interview with the Venezuelans says 2 weeks. It was supposed to take 2 weeks, which is the most stupid thing I've heard Americans say since Iraq is going to take 2 weeks. They literally said that before they tried to invade Iraq. So yeah, just anytime you hear...
Wait, he said that the
This
coup
is what
was going to take
sustains us.
2 weeks?
Oh, it was a 2 week operation. Oh yeah.
2 weeks.
Oh yeah, they were going to get him.
Oh yeah.
Done.
Oh,
I mean, it's like
Fortnite.
Caracas is. I mean, I guess they were expecting to sort of like hit the beach undetected.
No, it's just what the contract states. Don't worry, Jake.
I got you.
Look at the period on the. I mean, obviously they have to complete it by contract's end, Jake,
Yeah, I'm just trying to think
and or get picked off like piece by piece. I think there was like 3 total parties. The first party, 8 dead, 2 captured. That was on the shore. That was the only one that reached the shore properly. The second one was picked up by the Navy, like on the coast. and the third one, was picked up by fishermen.
who basically what did they just like put their poles in front of them and they were like
You know what? I'm gonna give this one to the opposition and say it's very possible Nicolas Maduro wanted that to emphasize the idea that fishermen captured these people at the end there. However, it's not questionable whether these guys were real. They were real. They went and did this shit, and Mike Pompeo did put up the $55 million in bounties after indicting a foreign government of Maduro on narco trafficking charges. But yeah, it's beautiful stuff and an utmost failure. And unfortunately, the QAnon guy, he did resist torture for longer, so I think he was the tougher one because the first guy clearly crumpled. He was looking great, very fresh when he did his interview.
Yeah.
Second guy was spacing the fuck out. He was being potentially tortured and definitely sleep deprived.
definitely
And that's actually torture and sleep deprivation. So he was definitely tortured.
Venezuela was as rich as could be. They turned to socialism. Now what do you see? They promise the people everything for free, but nothing gets you nothing. Everything's got a fee. Realize it's all a deception of lies. A master plan that the deep state devised. Trump won, so they had to improvise. Here comes AOC, fully weaponized.
Next story. Conspiracy theory video Plandemic goes viral thanks mostly to QAnon Facebook groups.
Hell yeah.
So this past week, the half-hour documentary, quote-unquote, called Plandemic went mega viral on social media. It includes a slew of false and unsubstantiated claims. It claims, for example, that COVID-19 was, quote-unquote, manipulated, when in reality, all of the genomic evidence suggests that the virus was made in nature and not a lab.
Yeah, nature. Bill Gates' backyard.
God damn it. And the film also claims that wearing a mask literally activates your own virus, which
It does.
is not. That doesn't even make sense.
It gives it back to you.
It's not a sensible collection of words.
It's like an oven
It can't
for the
even be debunked. It's just pure absurdity.
wait, hold on.
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
It activates
Your own, yeah, you wear a mask and then
Sure.
it makes your virus work better? I don't know.
For the audience, Travis is gesticulating wildly to try to get Jake to understand what he's going on about.
I know. It's like I can't understand it myself.
He's trying to
I
mime it
listened to
out.
It's like
I can't
it's
believe
incoherent.
this.
So incredible.
It was bad. So the video is largely an interview with Judy Mikovits, who is a former chronic fatigue researcher. So Mikovits was an author of a controversial 2009 study linking a retrovirus to chronic fatigue syndrome that was published in the journal Science. It was later retracted in late 2011 after labs were unable to replicate the results and other issues were brought to light, which is fine. That's how science works.
Yeah.
That same year, in September of 2011, Mikovits was fired from her position as a research director at the Whittemore Peterson Institute in Nevada and arrested 2 months later after the institute alleged she stole lab materials, and those charges were later dropped. This appears to be a case of a disgraced scientist who decided to get a second career as a conspiracy theory peddler. They're like, I have all this credibility. There are all these people who want medical misinformation, and I'm going to give it to them.
Yeah.
And she's doing very well for herself. Her book was #1 selling on Amazon in the wake of this interview.
Yeah, we're not really in a scientist's market.
We're not.
No, we're in a book on Amazon promotional Facebook video.
That's right, we are.
Right.
Market.
So who can we thank for spreading this documentary? Well, according to social media researcher Erin Gallagher, that would be QAnon. So according to her analysis, which she published on Medium, the ground zero of the video's virality was a Facebook group with 125,000 members called Official Q/QAnon. So this is where it first started. It just sprang forth from this Facebook group. Just little petri dishes of conspiracy theories.
1,700 hours of daring amphibious raid was launched from the border of Colombia deep into the heart of Caracas. Our men are continuing to fight right now. Our units have been activated in the south, west, and east of Venezuela. Commander Nieto is with me, is co-located, and Commander Sakei is on the ground now fighting.
Silvercorp, USA.
Basically, here's where Q is right now. They are riding high. You know, Michael Flynn, he just had a case against him dropped by the DOJ. Right now, we're up to 40 current and former promoters running for Congress. And QAnon community has repeatedly gotten the Plandemic, for example. They were instrumental in getting that thing to go viral. It actually originated from a Facebook QAnon group. When I started tracking this 2 years ago, what really concerned me was Charlie Kirk promoted QAnon conspiracy theories. That was as high level as it got. But they have progressed a long way. So QAnon community, they are doing as well as I've ever seen them, certainly.
And one of theirs ended up with his VA card in his back pocket on the shores of Venezuela.
That's right, yeah.
This guy specifically followed Q Army and QAnon 8kun, which are incredibly specific kind of, if you're on the inside, that's the kind of hashtag you'd be following if you consider yourself part of the Q Army, or if you want to see the drops directly from 8kun, which is renamed 8chan.
Yeah, this guy was a non on the boards.
So you're telling me a serving member of the Q Army is currently being held as a prisoner of war by the tyrant Nicolas Maduro?
Yeah, and I wonder if this is the new model, right? A kind of decentralized model where the people caught on the foreign soil are actually just the subcontractor that underbid and then ended up going forward anyways by mistake.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's time for the Q Army, though, to launch another mission into Venezuela to free these boys. Bring them home.
Yes.
Yeah, if they were worth their weight in salt, I mean, they'd already be planning an op.
Bring these Q boys home.
It wasn't one of the Q beliefs that Jeffrey Epstein was hooked up with Maduro in some way?
I don't recall that specific
There
one.
was one of those crazy days and nights things, which is a lot of them take their stuff from, that suggested that Epstein hung out with Castro and Hugo Chavez, and that's where he got some of his adrenochrome
I wonder if there's
supplies.
hundreds of famous people that are just photographed with Epstein that we don't have to wonder about.
I'm not saying Nicolas Maduro is completely above criticism, and the nation of Venezuela, obviously they are under an embargo, but it was a mistake of them to tie their currency to the global adrenochrome market right before it crashed.
Yeah, everyone remembers in the early 80s.
That's why they're eating zoo animals now.
They went through Red Friday where, famously the Bolivar was unstuck from adrenochrome and they lost half the value overnight. Of course, foreign investors were warned in advance. And they've never really recovered fully. But hopefully, the adrenochrome, the barrel price is.
I mean, famously, a lot of QAnon followers, they believe that the adrenochrome supply was based in Wuhan, and this is where they're just torturing children, making all their adrenochrome, and then what the White Hats did is that they tainted this adrenochrome supply.
Yeah, they
and then that's why Tom Hanks and a lot of celebrities were testing positive for COVID-19.
Yeah.
So that must have crushed.
So the president did a Animal House style prank on the global pedophile cabal. Is what you're saying.
He poisoned their beer.
He spiked the adrenochrome.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, and as just as an addendum to that, I'm imagining the Q community is vibrating pretty intensely upon hearing the news that Tom Hanks has donated his plasma to the study of of COVID.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey Epstein's DNA, that's going in the vaccine. Tom Hanks's DNA, definitely going in the his plasma, his DNA.
Yeah.
If anyone who gets the vaccine they're going to be big. If you give your child the vaccine, it will turn them into big. It will make them big overnight.
Yeah, they basically believe that if you take this vaccine that you will be injecting the blood of 1,000 children into your soul.
You'll be incredibly good at finances and speculation.
Yeah, see, I don't understand what the downside of this is. You get the powers of Jeffrey Epstein with none of the downside? You're like a daywalker.
Well, unfortunately, when you get cut off, you age 300 years in 2 days or whatever. So they always have these photos that they've done Photoshops on of Hillary or whatever, where they just give her 2 black eyes or whatever, and they're like, look what happens when they don't get their supply.
It's fucking, you guys remember that movie? It came out in mid to late 90s called Death Becomes Her. It was with Meryl Streep and a fucking great performance from Bruce Willis. I recommend everybody go back and check out Bruce Willis doing comedy there.
Oh yeah, that's when he actually cared.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
It's when he cared. But yeah, by the end of the movie, these things are just falling apart pieces of plastic. I think that's what they think that is really going on.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they also loved when like all the celebrities kind of like holed up in their homes, like acting weird, posting, weird Instagrams because they're bored in their big houses. They're always saying it's like, well, they're going nuts, they're going stir crazy because their adrenochrome supply is cut off.
I mean, I just like a bit of this is like yesterday's hot story. I'm putting on my Q goggles, my Q lenses, and looking at the Allison Roman, Chrissy Teigen dust up. And it was like Allison was trying to warn us. She was just saying like, oh, like I'm not into that. Like I'm like that. That's not my thing. She was talking about adrenochrome, and everyone was like, oh, Chrissy Teigen's like don't blame her for having a cookware line. Let her do her thing. But like, what are they cooking? It's spirit cooking. It's spirit cooking, and now Allison Roman is being disciplined. She's getting emails. She's having to send emails. Her agent's probably fucking batting down her door, getting her to like, no, you must submit to Chrissy Teigen, and I think that's what's going on here because she's a big player. She's a big player, and also I don't want to get the show. I don't want it to go too long without just acknowledging it is Mother's Day, and I want to wish a happy Mother's Day to all the QAnon moms out there,
especially that doctor, the blonde lady from where is that, South Carolina, the one who had the viral video where she explained the Q is actually you and me.
Yes.
Yeah, shout outs to her specifically.
Yeah,
she's a damn dime.
She is a dime, yeah. There's a lot, like, honestly, Liz Crokin and the new Out of Shadows.
Yeah, well, and the movement is sort of moving to kind of like attractive blonde, like internet yogi people. Like there's sort of
there's
been a handful of sort of new age
influencers.
Yeah.
There's people who aren't like especially political, don't even seem that right leaning, but they are very into like sort of spiritual guru, sort of Age of Aquarius kind of stuff, and they get sucked into QAnon and get red pilled.
Specifically, which is kind of sad. I think like if you look at how Epstein has been buried so far, they're right to be concerned right now that there's a big cover-up around children, and I think that the children thing, specifically in like the ritual sacrifice stuff, is what pulls in a lot of people who might have been considered like faintly liberal or left-leaning or whatever, including the white founder of a type of yoga called booty yoga, who I can't remember her name is like Buzzy or like she just absolutely named
like
herself
Busy Bee or something like that,
but like Bizzie. So there's a lot of like white yoga. There's like white yoga women and some male models have contacted me thinking that I'm pro QAnon and just kind of going, these people are sick, right? And I'm just like, wow, this is like someone who works at one of the top agencies here in LA.
Yeah, it's about to hit California hard, I think, because what they don't realize is that it ends in like hangings at Gitmo. They're sort of in it for like the Great Awakening, which is like as they already are sort of looking for.
And let's not forget that if we're actually going to have to start mass administering vaccines to people in the near future, that's only going to increase the crunchy QAnon pipeline movement.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And once again, we're going to have to try to explain why, you can be totally pissed off at like Bill Gates and everything he's set up to kind of, keep the vaccines under his like kind of intellectual property stuff and all the deregulation he does in foreign countries. Or you could just say he's trying to microchip you with the mark of the beast and just go straight for it, I wonder.
Yeah, the big thing is that I will not take Bill Gates' vaccine. I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
The Gates vaccine.
The Gates vaccine. This doesn't exist.
Yeah, Michelle Malkin.
But they are insisting they will never take it.
I mean, I don't know if I'm taking the. I would take the Gates vaccine either. I mean, come on.
I wouldn't either.
But there is none.
If the Gates vaccine was real,
with fucking Tom Hanks's
take
blood
a vaccine,
in it,
my ass. Quote, comma, I will not take a vaccine.
I mean, has anyone tried using Windows 97? It crashes all the time.
They just bring a bunch of like 50-plus guys out onto the stage and like tucked in button downs, like you kind of dancing around with a fucking like amber bags fucking hooked up to them.
Oh my god, dude! Well, when they create that vaccine and they recreate that Windows 97 launch and get Ballmer out there, get Gates out there, start me up, and they're just pumping their fists like crazy and just get hyped up.
We've got a new Xbox coming
with Tom Hanks's plasma.
We got the new Xbox coming. Maybe it'll be a dual launch.
Yeah, it's not going to run Cyberpunk unless it has the mark of the beast and some children's blood inside
it. No, yeah, like the next generation of PlayStation, Xbox technology will be like a console with like the brain of an indigo child inside it. And that's how it's running, like the next level of like video, like really.
Yeah, it'll be like a little Existence style, like flesh box that you have to kind of poke and prod in different ways.
Dude, well, it already looks kind of like the fucking like monolith from 2001. Like it's just this fucking all-knowing, all-seeing, like omnipresent brain. That I by the way, I will happily, I will pre-order that to put it into my house.
Yeah, wow, including the microphone that monitors you.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Oh, and I guess like the other thing in the Q universe that's like a big deal that you guys hit me to is that JFK Jr. is running for Congress now?
So that is it's unclear what happened to get that website up. There's a lot of work put into it. There is no donate link at the end of it. So we're kind of in retrospect not sure if he actually is running.
Basically, someone set up a website that made it look like Vincent Fuchsia, who a lot of people think is JFK Jr. Is running for Congress.
I mean, he is JFK.
Yeah, obviously,
Jr.
Yeah,
he is JFK
look
Jr.
at look at any two photos of them next to each other.
They look so
isn't
different
JFK
that they
Jr.
have to be the same guy.
Look at how he poses in pictures.
Oh, wait. Who is the guy? Okay, no, the other really good one is that Pope Francis is Frank Sinatra.
Oh yes, he's
and which would mean that Ronan Farrow's dad is Pope Francis.
Tracks also that Trudeau is Fidel Castro's son.
Mm-hmm. See that one, honestly, if you look at the two pictures, that one I kind of buy.
Same with
that
the
one actually does.
Yeah. Same with the Podesta, John Podesta, and Chester Bedingfield. When you look at those two guys, you're like, holy shit. Pilled.
No, honestly, like that. The whole Chester Bennington Podesta thing, like, keeps my third eye wide open. No blinking.
Another big story that came out of QAnon that I was really excited about in the last couple months was the rescue of the mole children, which they had believed that there were children who were enslaved underground in New York City, and that the military was undergoing some sort of operation to save them and show them daylight for the first time in their lives, and then bring them to.
I hope not all at once.
No, of course not.
That would be traumatic for them. Yeah.
No. Yeah. They had to ease them into it. They were bringing them to the hospital ship, and that's where they're being treated.
I was aware of that.
Yeah.
The hospital ship, the Navy hospital ship that was docked, like on the Hudson, that was supposed to be like, there to relieve some of the like overtaxed like hospital and healthcare system in New York City. Apparently, it was a huge boondoggle, and like no one was ever like sent to the hospital ship. But it made sense when I saw the QAnon theory that the hospital ship was there to rescue all of the children from the tunnels.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And the children from the tunnels were sent to the hospital ships. That's why COVID patients never ended up there. But tell me more about the mole children, though. I know in Manhattan there are famously a population of mole people, which just refers to homeless people who have, some sort of like live in the labyrinthine tunnels underneath New York City and like the subways and whatnot that are like half of them are just like abandoned.
Sure, yeah.
So that's the thing. But what about the mole children? These are children who are born into the darkness, like Bane,
They were born underground. They were bred underground by the cabal, by the deep state for their adrenochrome, and they were like raised underground. And they also believe in some cases that they are not fully human. Maybe they're sort of a chimera. Maybe they're half alien, but they are some sort of deformed genetic experiment children who are tortured underground for years, for their entire life, never saw daylight, and then now they're being rescued. This was the belief that was swirling around.
Yeah, why is Matt not staking anything like that out? It seems like the left is ignoring a lot of good stuff that's happening.
I mean, I just want to meet one of these mole children. First of all, obviously, to confirm that they exist, and secondly, that they're happier up here, because who knows? If you're enough of a mole child, you're probably not going to be comfortable on the surface ever.
No.
Yeah, you're going to wake up you're going to go to that kid's room every morning, and they're going to be buried under the bed. They're going to be trying to like dig a hole back underground.
My newly liberated mole child won't come out of the pillow fort he's constructed. I just sort of like I push some food underneath the pillows.
Yeah,
and
you
just,
gotta-
a little hand shoots out and they grab it and just start
you have to-
nibbling.
You have to shake a cord at them under the bed.
Yeah.
It'll coax them out a little
It
bit.
was one of the harder ones for them to illustrate because they couldn't come up with like a visual that could make any sense for what a mole child would look like.
Well, I know that's the thing that's so funny. It's like if you want to like have a great awakening and like show people like the true evils of a cabal, like a great way to do it would be to parade the mole children out on television as you rescued them.
Yeah, but
because that would
QAnon
be
is like if a pulp author like had Alzheimer's and was trying to establish canon. Like it doesn't. It actually kind of it makes sense, but only in a second plane of existence.
Yeah, it's more like a Tom Minks like a serialized sort of thing where each week it's kind of a new adventure that sort of there's no really lasting canon. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, what really weirds me out, even more so than the QAnon followers who buy into the whole mole children theory, is that I often interact with a lot of QAnon followers who like recognize that the whole mole children theory is absurd, and they say that, okay, obviously those people believe nonsense, but it's okay. I'm not going to dissuade them from believing in the mole children because they're on the right track. Because the truth is, there are children who are abused who ought to be rescued.
But
in like some sort of vague sense.
I do have a question for Matt around that stuff because Matt, you spoke recently about the idea of taking some of the understandings of like a conspiracy. You don't need to confirm it, but you just use it to inform like your broader understanding and just kind of move on from it instead of staying obsessed. Do you still believe that could apply to something as wild as mole children?
Well, yeah, because people do. Not only is it important for yourself to do, because I feel like if you take a categorical denial of anything that smells like conspiracy theory, you're going to end up not understanding a lot of stuff, because everything from CIA drug trafficking to the Epstein case, you're going to not give it the due that it's required, and then it's not going to challenge you to fit it in your understanding of the world. So you have to engage with stuff that's happening in conspiracy theory. What you have to avoid is the thing where you get so fixated on some version of it being real that you focus on proving it and kind of forget that that's basically impossible given the information that is available and given the degree of clandestinity that you're assuming. I would say that QAnon is poisoned from the get-go and can never be useful, even if it has real things that texture it, because its general motivation is not reacting to some insane thing happening. It's just psychic energy needing to go somewhere when the guy that you love and want to fix everything doesn't fix everything. It's a way to make sense of a world that does not conform to the world that you think you're creating with your psychic bond with your TV buddy, the president. And so it's basically like a reverse Purple Rose of Cairo, or like Last Action Hero, where you just walk into the spectacle of politics and then become a character. You become Dora the Explorer. And of course, liberals do the same thing with Russiagate. It's a way to deal with the insane cognitive dissonance of seeing something that you trust failing to do what you've all in your mind imagined they could do, which is right every wrong and make your life beautiful. And as the people's lives are just going to get worse and worse, the need to get bigger and bigger stakes is going to be really powerful.
I mean, yeah, that to me is like my favorite feature of the QAnon lore is how originally, like how it was so, like the storm is coming, like it's so tied to this idea that like there's going to be like an epochal moment where like you wake up one day and like half of every politician and celebrity like you've ever known or enjoyed the films or music or voted for has just been like arrested, like in a mass arrest, and then like immediately executed or sent to a fucking like Guantanamo Bay or something, right? And
like the leftovers.
Exactly. Like, like all of your enemies, like, Hillary Clinton, the Obamas, like, every Democratic politician, all the Hollywood sickos, they're just going to be mass arrested, like frog marched out. And the fact that had never happened is so funny to me, but like the turn, like the added bit of lore about how like, oh, it already has happened. They've just been replaced with clones or body doubles is such a good move. But what's also fascinating to me about that is like the explanation for that is like, well, this would like, the the revelations contained herein are so earth-shattering and so terrifying that, like, you know, like the white hats essentially have to protect the fragile sanity of the public by like maintaining this veneer of normalcy, you know, by cloning Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson or whatever.
Yeah.
Or using, you know, Saddam style body doubles of, I don't know, John Legend or Chrissy Teigen or whatever. But what's interesting about that is like that's a good diversion for a while. But at a certain point, it runs into the same problem. Like, when's the payoff? Like, what's the point of punishing all the bad people if no one's ever going to know about it? Like, at some point, you still need someone to come on TV and say, like, the originals have been arrested, tried in a military court, and executed for adrenochrome trials, and now all of the clones and body doubles, like, you can go back to, you know, doing whatever you were doing before. Or, like, or then what do you do with Tom Hanks's clone or the clone of Barack Obama when it's all over? Are they just going to be like doing appearances at local car dealerships
pranks
and stuff? Yeah, exactly. Jackass style pranks.
I think that would be cool. They let them free. They let them wander. Yeah, make their way in the world as celebrity impersonators.
But then they're making their way. But like, the thing is, like, they're making their way in a world where they're like impersonating a celebrity that's been executed for child human sex trafficking. You know, like, what
There's
the fuck?
still sickos out there.
You want that Barack Obama to come to your kid's birthday
There's
party?
still sickos out there.
Or promote the opening of your sandwich chain.
Okay, Will, are you saying that it wouldn't be cool to have a Michael Jackson who isn't a pedophile?
Yeah, actually, you know, you're right. It'd be like, no, like these are now the safe versions.
Yeah, they're the good
Like
version.
all the
You may-
fame and
you may have
charisma
liked-
drained of the awful
Exactly.
deeds.
You may have liked Tom Hanks and Spielberg's movies before you found out their connection to this unspeakable evil, but maybe you can still enjoy them when, like, you know, just the clone versions of them are doing the same
Exactly.
thing. And
Ladies
untainted
and
by this.
gentlemen, we're going to replace all of Hollywood by a non-pedophilic version of itself, and we're going to solve the entire.
It's the Mr. Show sketch where they get reparations for Jewish people. They all get Hitler clones to work in their house. That worked out fine in that sketch, as far as I could tell.
No, I think that the end of the funnel, to broadly answer your question, Will, is like vote for Trump and forget about the fucking details. Who cares? Overload your brain with bullshit. At the end of it, you fucking get to that ballot. That's all that fucking matters, is that your confused ass mind coalesces towards this supposed angelic being who's fighting it. And we were talking about this today because over time with this podcast, a lot of research and a lot of stuff we've looked into, we're not even, you know, obviously, but a lot of proofs that, like, the idea of a deep state is something that is useful. Like, that is a useful concept, obviously it taken a certain way. But what's really happening here is, like, the deep state basically had a schism and is fighting itself.
But also the idea that, you know, that there are factions within the deep state whose interests are not aligned and are, like, sort of in contest with one another is actually, I think, a pretty useful heuristic for understanding a lot of shit as well, even if, like, not like the literal details of it, you know?
We are seeing, like, even, like, you know, XOS int and, like, people that have like millions of followers and are platformed by some of the big supposedly liberal media. They're out there going like, well, we think that maybe Obama or like Hillary might be arrested by Donald Trump so that he can energize his base in the next 3 months, which is fucking QAnon in exact, like, it's a perfect inversion of QAnon. They're saying basically the storm is coming, but like in a bad way.
But I also
the same result as the arrest of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama.
I also think that there is a world where Trump is so pilled just because he's into QAnon, not as the guy who's ahead of it, but just as the idea of it and how much it energizes his base, that he could essentially kind of meme it into reality. I mean, he could drum up fake charges against, or have Bill Barr drum up fake charges. I mean, that's the thing is I think that there is a possibility that he could become so pilled on his own shit that he essentially creates QAnon and makes it real.
But I think he'll always put like the bottom line, and financially specifically the bottom line first. Like, I think that's the truth. And even if you look at this whole like mercenary thing that fell apart, they're trying to be like, well, we just believed in freedom. We thought they were going to greet us as liberators. Not really true. There was a lot of money on the line in a million different ways for those guys to try to pull something like that off. And fail, obviously, but
I mean, that's what's so cool about it, is that like something could like spontaneously be created that is a real version of the thing that was made up or fake to begin with. Like, you could have a like a real copy of a fake original. It's like the closest thing to like Foucault's pendulum that like has ever actually like existed outside of that novel. I mean, it's like, or like what's fascinating as well is like the dynamic that you're talking about how like at bottom, it's just a sort of a coping strategy to explain why the things you want to happen or the things that you believe that it's a way of coping with the fact that nothing ever really changes despite who's in power or like, what they say, or like you've got the thing you wanted. The Republicans control all three branches of government. Like they, can basically do what they want, but there's no satisfying conclusion. Nothing in your life changes, nor does, and crucially, when you turn on your TV and you watch your stories and see the people that you like and the people that you hate on the TV, nothing changes with that either. It just goes on and on. There's like, there's no satisfying conclusion, or there's no even like unsatisfying conclusion. It's just there. And what I like about QAnon is that it's this kind of like crowdsourced, story, like sci-fi story that explains it, even though like, Democrats for the 8 years that Obama was president just did a more boring version of the same thing, where it was like with Obama, it was always this like receding horizon of like waiting for the real Obama to arrive. First it was like, oh, like he's not doing all these things in the first term because like you don't understand how hard it is, like, to be the first black president, and like, oh, like, he's just got to win re-election, or like if he does anything out of line, they'll just like, assassinate him or impeach him or disappear him. And then as soon as wait till he wins a re-election, then it's like all the gloves come off. It's the real Obama's going to get there. And that never fucking happened. And then it was like, oh, well, wait till he was just out of the White House, and then he can like say whatever he wants, and he'll be freed to like, really speak the truth. The only thing he's done in his post-presidency was make sure Bernie couldn't be fucking the nominee. That's the only thing he stuck his neck out or like chimed up about.
Yeah, it was the fading sound of a jet ski, and then like way later, like, by the way, don't do Bernie at all.
Yeah. By the way, everyone, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, drop out right now.
And they're going to do the same thing with fucking Trump. Whether he wins or loses, they're going to be like, oh, well, he had to leave the White House to enact like the full extent of the plan. Like it's still going to. Matt touched on something earlier that I think is key to the sort of whole idea of QAnon, is that they don't see the real things that are happening, so that they're never actually satisfied. Like none of them were happy when Epstein got caught or arrested, because they're just waiting for them to expose Hillary Clinton. Like when Epstein, died, it was just, oh, well, like, man, now Hillary Clinton's going to get away. Like they don't even see the real aspects of the thing that they think that they're fighting for. So therefore, that's why it links up so well with religion, because it's this ideology that can keep going on to infinity, whether anything about it is real or not.
Yeah, the religious aspect means that for them, like for us, that maybe don't understand faith and religion in the same way, like if we believed in something and waited for it our whole life and it never happened, that would be a failure. For them, it's just like how it works. So adding QAnon to the register of shit that's never going to happen, you just got to have faith and like, just look at the kind of bigger picture and, and be thankful for what you got. Like that's par for the course.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things that really make QAnon addictive is like, obviously, number one, the total assurance of victory, where they are 100% sure that eventually is like, I will get everything I want, and all the sickos will be arrested, and Hillary go to Gitmo. It will happen. And then, but before that happens, you're taken on this incredible, emotional journey, full of highs and lows. 1 week, Trump is trolling the deep state, and only you and your Q buddies know about it. The next week, the mole children are being rescued. I mean, this is way more exciting than like, what's happening in the mainstream news.
One of my favorite features of like the QAnon videos, like the YouTube videos and shit, like a lot of like the QAnon explainers that are done by Q people, is the ones that are sort of in anticipation of the Great Awakening. And like these were videos, at least the ones I watched, that were probably made, with a, probably I would say sincere belief that this was going to happen within like a month or two, or like the date was set. And, like there was these videos people made like as an explainer for like your, maybe non-Q-pilled relatives. And what I liked about it was just like, they'll have like the Q voice, like
in the coming months, like strange events will happen.
And it was just like it was pitched as like, look, all this insane shit is going to happen. You're not going to know what to make of it or what to deal with it. It's going to be frightening, but like, we're just here to assure you that like, it's going to be okay. And like somebody is in control.
Yeah, it reminds me of I went to a Lutheran school for grade school, and I remember seeing these videos that are made by these evangelical organizations that were basically made for people who survived the rapture. So basically, the rapture happens, everyone's sort of spirit, all the Christians are spirited away, and now only the heathens are left. So here's this VHS tape specifically for them to educate them on what has happened, and they produce these things with full confidence.
Now that you know
this
that
is going to happen in their lifetime.
It's like Beetlejuice, like handbook for the recently deceased.
Exactly. But it's also Todioso. Like I think that the long term is like we were right about everything. It's about faith, but the short term is like I'm right about like what I told you like 2 days ago that Hillary Clinton is wearing an ankle monitor or something.
Yeah,
it's just wanting to own your loved ones.
Sure, but again, like the fascinating thing about that is like there's never any satisfactory ownage. It never fucking happens. You're never gonna get the moment like of getting over on your skeptical relative, because the only thing that would really accomplish that is like news footage of Hillary Clinton like being black bagged into a fucking military cargo plane, and that just hasn't happened. So then you have to go to the body double shit, and it's just like. Even if that's true, it's not satisfying.
Yeah. Yes, but I love to imagine like a factory of Hillary Clinton somewhere that is just being fed straight into like a black bag operation, just over and over and over, torturing Hillary clones until the end of time. God damn it! No, there's no end. There's no end. But I think that it doesn't matter for them, because I think that they think that like they were proven right multiple times over. Like if you look at the way they treat Q proofs, for them they're also like it's already a thing. Like it was proven right like dozens of times, you idiot. That's how they come at you from like,
Right, yeah. That's a settled question. Whether or not Q is right, they've moved on to the next step, which is making everyone else realize it. Right, that's the only thing that they're focusing on is pilling.
So, like in the Q verse, like what is there like the most bulletproof like thing that they said like they can point to be like, Q said this, it happened, checkmate.
Obviously, the most recent one that they're super excited about is Michael Flynn, right?
Okay.
Yes,
he was already pled guilty. He was just awaiting his sentencing. Everything was lined up, but the QAnon community was convinced that he was a sort of a martyred hero, and he would be vindicated. And now we have the Department of Justice, whether it's legitimate or not, but it happened. They dropped the charges, and so they feel extremely vindicated.
The thing about you say what is the proof? The thing about those Q proofs is that they don't work that way.
Yeah.
They're like Nostradamus's quatrains. They are only predictive in retrospect. Something happens, and then you say, "Oh, look, in the proof, here it was. We just couldn't see it."
One of their biggest catchphrases is "future proves past." So it's like they've already built in a mechanism to respond to that criticism and be like, "Oh, well, no. How it works for us is exactly the opposite of how it is for everybody else. It is that future proves the past."
I'd argue the Flynn is safe being in a Q drop, and then now Flynn being like having this happen is probably the closest I've come to be like, okay. Fair call. Like you made a call and it turned out relatively right. Yes, it's a bit vague. Flynn is safe, but
it's that Flynn is safe is also compatible with Flynn being sentenced if he not getting prison time or something.
Yeah,
so
Flynn was always safe. It's not like he was going to be sent to fucking Leavenworth, right? Like it was just
no, he'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been watching.
Is Michael Flynn Jr. safe though? That's what I'm most concerned about. Protect Michael Flynn Jr.
Protect our king. Protect our precious king.
Here's an interesting question. Now that Michael Flynn is safe and officially is like, even though he was never going to go to prison, he's like officially just been, exonerated. Like, he can, I don't know. He won't have to put on a job application. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? But is Gulen safe now? Now that the Flynn boys have green light, if I were Gulen, I'd be investing even more heavily in like home security, Because
No, it's true.
Those Flynn boys they're doing a Ocean's 11 style like like black bag operation.
So they have unfinished business. So
Yeah, they're not gonna silver corp this shit. They're gonna roll up and take him down.
Oh no, he's Flynn's gonna get appointed to be like in the NSA or director of the FBI or something. He'll use the government resources.
The CIA minister of shish kebab.
Yeah, there's already speculation in the Q verse. Well, there are a couple guys on Twitter who won't fully come out and say that they're Q or use any of the QAnon hashtags, but they will like basically use all of the fucking talking points.
But the Flynn boys straight up like down.
Yeah.
And the dad signed "Where We Go One, We Go All" in one of his books. So Flynn is like
they're
he
both
loves
pilled.
It.
They're both pilled.
Flynn Jr. famously.
You mentioned the of course probably the most famous Q hashtag "Where We Go One, We Go All." I really love what I remember the warmth I felt inside when I learned that comes from the appalling and very not widely seen Ridley Scott film White Squall, starring Jeff Bridges, about a sort of tyrannical yachting captain who takes a bunch of boys into a hurricane.
That's right.
Yep.
I remember seeing that movie in the theater.
Well, then you should read the review where a Q person gets angry because it doesn't represent Where We Go One, We Go All because they let the kids drown. Just furious in the Amazon reviews.
Q references only terrible movies. Also reference The Sum of All Fears.
But that goes back to JFK as well, though. First, the bell. They think that JFK had a boat with a bell that said "Where we go one, we go all,"
which is untrue.
Which is not true. But
right.
Even the White Squall thing has like an antecedent that goes back to JFK.
Well,
here's the question. I know, obviously we talked about Fuchsia, aka JFK Jr.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the JFK Jr. is like obviously like a big North Star in the Q lore. I love the thing about like how the first issue of George magazine contained like hidden clues about how George H.W. Bush was the guy who killed his father, which honestly, George H.W. Bush was in Dallas on that day. I don't know if that's ever been satisfactorily explained, but JFK Jr., one of, probably the most recognizable people ever, one of the most handsome men of all time.
Yeah.
Has just become this like fedora-wearing dude who's like probably a foot shorter than him.
Just surrounded by balloons.
So what? They put him in the fly machine with like a New York bouncer. Like
yeah. But my question though is like, why, because Q is like, very much a, like a right-wing phenomenon, like a sort of like a, mutation of sort of John Birch ideology. Why is JFK considered such a hero?
His grave is shaped like a Q.
Also, he tried to dismantle the CIA, and then they put it back in place right afterwards. Like,
they
love that whole thing. I mean,
it comes back down to the belief that JFK was assassinated by people in the deep state who didn't want him to be president. This is everything's just sort of an echo from that sort of conspiracy theory, sort of like a mass star.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it doesn't help that his gravesite looks like a Q. Just saying, it doesn't help.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you draw a Q over it with like fucking Photoshop.
We went to the QAnon rally in Tampa, Florida. We spoke to that guy who's been pilled since JFK. All right, he said like, "Oh yeah, I've been into this for decades. Now the QAnon movement is sort of coalescing. Everyone's sort of believing what I believe."
Yeah, we went to the DC QAnon rally undercover as real Q heads. And then they busted us because we, released stuff afterwards. And then the second time we were overcover. And they were still pretty nice.
Yeah, but I hadn't gone to the first one, so I was alone undercover, and it was the worst day of my life. Yeah. It was bad energy. Like, I think I might have unpilled a couple people because they were like, man, if the community's got people like this,
they thought there were going to be like way more people. So it was like on the Washington like monument kind of grass area there. And we realized very quickly that there was a big white van repairing like a bleacher light in the middle of the day, like for hours and hours, and that the construction workers up there just had like fucking telelens.
Yeah, big camera.
They were just taking photos, and they were definitely just recording people. So the FBI was just kind of like just chilling. And then we confirmed it later by just looking at photos and just being like, oh yeah, the repairman just walking around with a DSLR, and then that guy like seems to be recording something from up in the bleachers. And we realized that they probably were really disappointed. They were like, there's like 70 people here. I mean, There was a lot of yelling about adrenochrome and about how Hillary sucks, but
No, I think I say QAnon followers. I mean, I think they're technically, extremists, but they are, I think, still. I hope this doesn't change, but still the least dangerous kind of extremists that we have here in the country.
I don't know. They actually are dangerous to mob bosses, though.
Well,
The only bodies. The only body's the Gambino boss. Like, what the fuck,
dude? Like, yeah,
That's another...
dude, yeah. Oh my God, like, QAnon has done more than the FBI to stop the mafia in New York City. I mean, to be fair, the Italian mob in New York City is a shadow of its former self, but that guy was one of the only actual like bosses in any of the five families who's been killed since like the 70s, I think.
No, absolutely. It turns out that QAnon so far better at avoiding civilians and just going straight for combatants.
Yeah, exactly.
Civilian casualties.
Back to sort of like Matt's sort of like broader idea about conspiracy theories, and something I've been thinking about recently, and I really do like the QAnon story. Like I do agree that individually I think these are probably mostly pretty harmless, and I actually kind of admire their creativity in coming up with such a cool story, even though if I think it's a little disturbing to literally believe it. But just overall, I'm thinking about conspiracy theories and post Epstein, post Trump, post everything now, world that we're living in. I've gotten to the point where I think I don't understand how anyone could not basically kind of half believe every conspiracy theory.
Right.
Yeah.
Or just at least be kind of agnostic about them, because the broad outlines of them, regardless of the details, do kind of describe real things, or things that are, probably true, or do kind of describe something real and terrible about the world we live in and the people who rule us. And now, I was talking about this with Haley on Chapo the other week when we talked about UFOs and these these Navy recorded UFO videos that they've now confirmed as authentic or whatever. And it's just sort of well, what do you do with that? What do you believe about this? It's not bulletproof, evidence of extraterrestrial life or something, but it's something, and nobody really knows what it is. And if you look at the overall UFO mythology, starting with Roswell, up until the present, and you just sort of trace the shape of all of it, and then overlay that over the shape of the creation of the U.S. national security state, the Cold War, the nuclear arms race, and everything else, and the intelligence, global intelligence apparatus and deep state or whatever. It's the shapes, the outlines of it just fit perfectly over each other.
Yeah.
It's a way of kind of describing and dealing with, or just sort of, I don't know, dramatizing things that sound insane no matter what way you look at them, whether they're UFOs or not, whether it's actual UFOs or it's just a government that is so removed from democracy and humanity and uses godlike technology to literally abduct and experiment on people. At some point, what difference does it make whether you believe it's aliens or just really, really powerful evil people?
Yeah, I think that I would still argue there is a difference, and I think Travis would make that argument even stronger than I would. But I agree that what's disturbing at this point is that if you just look at their grievances overall and superimpose them, like you said, onto reality, it's okay, so they basically added a satanic aspect to some relatively true things, broader things about Bill Gates, for example, that he tries to control the world, and and that he that he's actually hiding his real intentions or stuff like that. And then the problem is, as soon as you dial into the details, it's just wrong.
Yeah, I mean to say that they're interchangeable,
right,
or it's healthy to indulge too much in it. But I just think it's just the creation of these conspiracy mythologies in American culture, just track very neatly with the post World War II sort of rise and now fall of a U.S. global military financial empire. And the stories sort of mutate alongside that other story.
Yeah, it does feel a bit I guess for the homeschooled evangelicals, their version of kind of pulling understanding from just how goddamn confusing and evil a lot of this shit actually really is. But then they have to cut. Yeah, they have to kind of take the shortcut through kind of Christian symbolism, extremist Christian symbolism and stuff like that. But that's because they've been fed that shit since like the Christian panics go back like.
And also, I mean, they sort of, I think that they cling on to those ideologies because if they didn't, they'd have to realize that like progressive policy and like the people on TV that they think are like communists and shit and, are pushing all sorts of scary new genders and stuff on them are like that they're going to have to vote for them. Like they want to just think that like Daddy Trump is going to fix everything. And so you almost need a supernatural science fiction sort of a plot line to get there and make that true for yourself.
I'm sure that a lot of people have had to do the same kind of gymnastics with like the head of their evangelical megachurch or something, where the guy looks like a grotesque, rich, like piece of shit, and yet you have to still hear him like sermonize or believe that he's a certain way.
Well, it was like when we went to these QAnon rallies, we saw like one of the big influencers like riding fucking first class.
I mean, I love conspiracy theories, but like my approach to them is obviously like very, very different from a lot of QAnon people. Like I see a conspiracy theory floating around, like say MK Ultra. People saying that the CIA conducted mind control experiments on citizens, just human experimentation. You research into it, you're like, oh, that's true. There's actually a lot to that.
Yeah.
And then I see another conspiracy theory floating around, and they claim that, let's say, the COVID-19 was engineered in a laboratory. This is an artificial virus, and it's being used as a bioweapon. Okay, I'll look into that. I'll see the genetic evidence. I'll see what's being published about it, and I discover that's false. All right, there's nothing to that, and I let that go. But some people, they I don't know, they don't do the research and they decide not to let it go, so they just cling to the idea that it's a bioweapon.
I would argue that it, like, in a complex world, not everybody's going to go and fucking figure out whether each of the conspiracy theories are true. Like, we basically do that for our show or whatever, but like the average person just needs a broad understanding of like how they should see evil and good in the world, I guess, and like make that material in their everyday life. And so that's where I understand that these people are not going to look deeper, but they're looking for like a broad understanding. Like someone says all billionaires are bad. Like maybe that not be, maybe that's not entirely true, or maybe that's entirely true, but it'll guide their understanding going forward. They can like filter it through that.
Yeah, I feel like, it's like they're...
And if you think about these things as like how useful they are towards like, I don't know, sort of like managing democracy in kind of like a post-democratic society where like, it's not really about, certainly not about like, input of popular will into the system, but is about managing public perception of democracy itself. Like how useful it is in it, like because of how outlandish and, like seemingly sci-fi all of the QAnon shit is, because like and then the fact that the major villains of it are like the Clintons and Obamas and, the Democratic establishment and CIA or whatever. Like because of how ridiculous and outlandish that shit is, it also gives like liberals and Democrats it gives them a kind of protective membrane to be like, oh, look how ridiculous and insane this is. Like, how could you possibly believe the Clintons are evil people?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Where it's just like I wish they'd imbibe just some of it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's the problem that Matt was mentioning, is it's kind of poisoned from the start. So even if you have some like broader understandings of the world that might be correct because you took in QAnon, you're fucking you're gonna die like of it anyway. So, but yeah, that's what's so infuriating, I guess, about it is there's no real good filtration system for it. You just have to kind of, I guess, provide the information, hope people want to pay attention that long. I just don't think they do. They want to fucking maybe hold up a sign at the end of like their kitchen conversation with their friends.
They want to know who to fight and who to hate.
Yeah, exactly. And it's getting easier by the day. I mean, Trump is like promoting this new network. I don't know if you guys have looked into this, OAN.
Oh, was it OANN?
Oh, I mean, he's been about that forever, right?
And now they're going like full on. Now they're going full on like the deep state is causing COVID with like, it's like
with the
very
help of George
specific,
Soros.
With the help of George Soros. They're showing George Soros on the screen. And so now, I mean, I would argue that we're heading towards an Overton window that looks a bit like Volkish occultism on the right and like and
right.
and fucking like Nazism on the left. Basically, it's
Alex
like
Jones is going to be a centrist pretty soon.
Yeah, Alex Jones is absolutely going to be a centrist, and a hot one, hotter than Joe Biden.
If you think about it, the Thule Society in Germany was basically just QAnon.
Yeah.
With more concern about genealogy.
Exactly. Yeah, they were more linked into blood. They're still obsessed with blood, in a Christian way, but
they talk about bloodlines all the time.
All the time.
Think that basically the entire sort of like the cabal is sort of just descended from a sort of a handful of bloodlines that have ruled throughout the millennia.
Wait, usually they like to tie it back to the Draco constellation and the reptilians.
It's sort of the David Icke sort of sect.
The thing that I think is what really makes Q so delusional and hurtling towards this end state of complete insanity, because it is an immature, childish attempt to process politics, and its childishness is exemplified most poignantly in the need to win. And the thing about politics is that you never win, realistically, and you have to be willing to accept that as it's just the state of things. Things can get better, and you can move towards a future that you feel more positive about than the past or whatever. But you can't win in one moment of glorious vindication.
No.
And that's something that it's hard for a lot of people who get into politics on the right or left to really get their head around. And if it's something that you can't let go of, you're going to need to create some sort of fantasy narrative where that's still possible when you see the earthly reality become farther and farther away from what you could ever imagine as being a victory condition.
So, recently you've been getting into this grill pill thing, Matt. Can you just give the audience like a little kind of explanation of that? And also, like, how do you think this might apply to the other side, people who are alienated but are more going towards like QAnon? I mean, even if it's people who are not usually about that, like let's say yoga influencer or whatever.
Well, QAnon is just another manifestation of the wildly different levels at which we absorb politics. We make politics part of our lives, part of our identities. We make political beliefs part of our identities. We make political goals part of our identities. But we observe politics largely at the level of a very abstracted spectacle, presidential and national politics mostly. And at that level, there's really nothing you can do in your day-to-day life to change anything at all. I mean, realistically. But what the internet does is it tricks you into thinking that there is. And that's what sends people just hurtling onto these increasingly internecine, Baroque arguments online between different parts of political ideology and across political divides in order to create something that feels like movement, but it's all artificial. And Q is basically where you take that is taking that phenomenon to its farthest possible pathological conclusion. When you're now part of a global secret war, and that your job is to promulgate to the people the truth of this conflict, so that when when Trump goes into occlusion, you'll be able to explain it to people. And the grill pill idea for me is just that the only cure for that, you can't reason your way out of it. You can't fight your way through it at that abstract level. At some basic point, you have to make a choice to engage less at that abstracted point. And that means logging off and finding something that you can do around you that has meaning. Because your meaning is all in symbols and it's all abstracted and it's all online. You have to find something that gives some sort of meaning to your activity. Meaning, by meaning, I mean you will want to do it. Because people want to go on the computer to distract and to channel energy. People don't want to do a lot of other things, but that's because they don't know why they should. And so it's about building a awareness of the world right around you that can make you actually want to do things that are constructive, as opposed to expressing all of your emotional energy on crafting a basically illusory and meaningless political identity, or solving the Q proofs and finding Blackbeard's treasure or whatever.
So where can people find you guys online?
You can find me at Will Menaker on Twitter, and on the program Chapo Trap House, available on wherever fine podcasts are sold.
Same, basically, only a different Twitter account, of course, at Cushbomb.
Second Lieutenant William Menaker wiped the dried salt from his brow. His skin was tan and leathery from the hot Caribbean sun. The sky was so bright, it was as if someone had used a shitty yellow gel to smear a poorer country. The plan was to storm the Macuto Beach just north of Caracas at 0800 hours. They would then travel, undetected, into the capital and kidnap the sitting president, Tomaso Perez. Apparently, he had usurped power years earlier by the order of a rule of decree. All Will knew was that someone wanted him dead. The podcaster had been approached months ago by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a high-ranking captain in the Venezuelan resistance. She would put Will and the Trap House security firm on a $1.4 million contract for the capture of Tomaso Perez so she could help install Venezuela's rightful leader, Bernardo Guaido Andres. Her comms had gone silent in November. Nevertheless, Menaker had forged ahead, gathering a ragtag group of completely psychotic, but altogether decent men. Will glanced around the boat, taking in the familiar faces. They trained together near a small outpost in the Cataines. He remembered those times as once filled with excitement and hope, warm beaches and cold beers, using coconuts for target practice, and dreaming of all the castles they would build when they struck rich. Now their worn faces were filled with the possibility of death. Some clutched necklaces, softly praying beneath their breath. Others looked off into the rolling waves of the ocean, making their peace with whatever they believed in. One man, with a fiery beard and a bright red Adidas tracksuit jacket, was standing near a large smoldering grill. He flipped plump, delicious-looking hot dogs, a giant smile plastered across his face.
Today we feast. Tomorrow we die.
He raised a glass bowl to his lips and ripped it hard, pulling flaming embers into his mouth and coughing out fire. Menaker raised his eyes at the sweet aroma of chiba permeating the hull of the dropship. A kid at the front of the bow was unloading large duffel bags of equipment. Menaker nodded in his direction.
Private Rakitansky, equipment check.
The private poured over heaps of automatic rifles, radios, and face masks splayed out on the deck of the boat.
Ready, sir? Man, check it out. Lancer Tactical Gen 2 SPR Interceptor LT-25 AEG electric airsoft gun. 4.5 stars on Amazon. Listen to this review. I'm jealous of my son. It's an actual review, by the way. He earned every bit of money for this gun. It was very well spent. Super accurate, out to 150 feet. Dad is getting one soon. Vwap. Fry half a city with this puppy. We got samurai face masks, two-way truck radios, a couple packs of Lunchables.
A skinny man with glasses, a sketchy-looking beard, and potentially even black eyeliner skittered around near the equipment.
Hey man, what's up? You got any
He motioned to his nose, clearly in need of cocaine, but was ignored. A mercenary in the back spoke up loudly over the group.
Knock it off, you two.
He lurched forward from someplace deep in thought and leaned along the port side railing.
You know, I've been thinking.
A hushed silence fell over the boat. When Lieutenant View spoke, people tended to listen.
Here we are, on a secret mission contracted by the United States government to topple an evil leader and install the one God intended.
He regarded the pile of weapons.
We have cool-looking guns. We're executing the op under the distraction of the virus.
Private Rakitansky looked confused.
What are you saying?
I'm saying, I think, that we are the storm. I mean, think about it. We're on a top-secret coup with Q+'s blessing. I was in the Green Berets. It all makes sense. It was such a secret op, we couldn't have known that we were the Q team all along.
The man at the grill stopped flipping his sizzling burger patties and pondered Travis's suggestion. If he was being honest with himself, he was fine with the idea of being Q team all along. Nothing mattered anymore anyways, except the meat, the drugs, and the jacket. He noticed the skinny man with glasses edging towards him. He looked like he was about to ask him for drugs.
Hey man, good idea to bring the grill.
The man didn't respond. He calmly laid slices of cheese on tops of each burger.
Hey, so I saw you hitting that bowl earlier. That's tight, man. I smoke too. But I was actually gonna ask you, like, do you have any of that coke left? You know, from the training camp. I mean, like, honestly, the only reason I came on this op is because I knew we were gonna go through Colombia. So, like, I really hate to ask you, and obviously this would be very nice if you did give me some. But like, do you have any?
The man put down his giant metal tongs and looked at Private Field with the intensity of a man on death row. He then reached into his pocket and handed the private a small glass vial. A look of relief washed over Field's face.
Aw, dude, thanks so much.
He held out his fist expecting a friendly bump in return, but the man at the grill said nothing. Instead, he loaded more heaps of meat onto the grill. Too much meat. No one said anything. Private Field turned to Menaker.
What's the deal with this guy?
Who? Corporal Cushbaum? Man's grown aware of the futility of fighting, Private. Never seen him quote tweet anybody, not even once. Basically a normie now. Nothing in those eyes but a steady stream of glazed meats, cold beer, and summer vibes.
Julian watched as Cushbaum, having now unzipped his jacket, held a flaming torch to a 2-foot banger, attempting to pull off a 1-gram dab challenge he'd seen on YouTube. His hair flapped in the strong ocean wind. Julian glanced over to Will, confused.
So why is he coming with us?
Second Lieutenant William Menaker leaned in with a twinkle in his eye.
Because, son, he's the best weapon we got.
With that, Menaker straightened up, stuck 2 fingers in his mouth, and released a piercing whistle. Everyone leaped to attention.
All right, boys, listen up. We make landfall in T-minus 10 minutes. We've received no comms from Bravo or Charlie, so at this point we must assume that they have all been captured or killed.
A couple of the guys looked around, scared.
Let's stick to the plan. We make landfall, and then we cover ourselves in mud and wriggle on our bellies all the way to Caracas.
The man behind the grill interrupted him, his voice unsteady and on edge, as if he'd been inhaling hot grill smoke for the last hour and a half.
We should consider executing the hostages.
Menaker looked increasingly worried.
No, we're not here to take any hostages, okay? We just want to have a discussion of ideas with Tomaso Perez, and I'm sure he'll voluntarily step down when we make an airtight case that Bernardo Guaido Sandres is the legitimate president.
Incoming!
Blam! A mortar strike exploded a couple feet beyond the boat. It heaved against the rocking waves, pushing closer and closer to shore. It was clear that Perez's army had been alerted to the coup and were patiently waiting on the beach with real weapons and explosives. Will's mind raced.
Okay, everybody down. We can use the sides of the boat as cover.
Corporal Cushbaum had leaped over the side of the boat and was galashing through the shallow waters. Menaker watched in horror as bullets penetrated the corporal's body. Miraculously, he seemed unfazed. He continued to trudge forward, absorbing bullets into his body, disappearing into the gray mist of artillery smoke. Will glanced around the boat. It was hell. Men were praying and crying for their mothers. Private Rakitansky was curled into the fetal position, rocking back and forth. Game over, man! Game over! Blam! A second shell hit, sending the boat lurching up on its front end. And then, blackness. When Menaker came to, he was laying on the shore of a beautiful pink sand beach. The warm water lapped at his ankles. The distant sounds of gunfire came into focus. Even though his vision was blurry, he watched as each man from his platoon fell. He watched as Rakitansky's small plastic BBs bounced off the soldiers' body armor like frozen peas. The skinny man with the glasses was crawling from body to body, sweating profusely, carefully checking each of their pockets. Somewhere in the distance, Corporal Cushbaum appeared, amidst the smoke, holding his own severed arm. What the fuck? This wasn't how this was supposed to go. Will got up and dusted the sand off his fatigues.
Cut. What the hell is going on here, Estefan? We're not supposed to actually get hurt.
A boom mic dropped into view. A handful of people with walkie-talkies and ball caps relaxed in the background. A woman approached Will and sponged his forehead a little bit. A man with dark curly hair sporting a jean jacket and well-kept mustache and beard hopped out of a nearby director's chair and approached them.
What are you talking about? That was perfect.
Will looked irritated.
With all the due respect, Mr. Spielbergo, I think some of our people are actually dying out here.
He gestured to a man lying a few feet away. It was the annoying guy with glasses from the boat. His body was separated into 4 segments, laying motionless on the beach. Crabs surfaced and began to scuttle his remains into small holes in the sand.
Wow. Thanks.
Estefan produced a small piece of paper and shoved it in Will's face. See that right there? It says that the production company is not responsible for any bodily harm or death caused in association with the film Saving Public Bernardo. That is your signature at the bottom, correct? Will nodded, defeated. Spielbergo turned to head back towards his director's chair. All right, people, back to ones. Will took off after him.
Look, Estefan, you don't have to kill anybody else. You got your scene. There were some great explosions. There were a couple good kills. You and I both know that the rest of this can be done in post, so no one else needs to die here.
Estefan paused, thinking. He looked out at the beach. There were bodies everywhere, the pink sand soaked with crimson blood. He nodded softly. You're right.
Okay, all right, everyone, that's a wrap for today. But before anyone could move, another voice called out from somewhere on the beach. Cut! Everyone looked towards the source of the voice. 2 agents dressed in clean black suits and sporting matching sunglasses walked up the beach towards the small production tent. They pulled a small piece of paper out of their pocket and shoved it in Spielbergo's face. You see that right there? It says, "Director will ensure all lefty podcasters are deceased prior to the end of principal photography." And that looks a whole lot like your signature. Estefan threw his headset on the ground and stomped on it. No, I will not. No more. Twilight Zone was bad enough. Now this? I can't take it anymore. I don't want to be the Deep State's hitman any longer. I want to talk to my agent. Wham! An arm came flying out of nowhere, cracking Spielbergo across the jaw. It took a second for Will to realize that the arm wasn't attached to any particular body. Corporal Cushbaum, completely caked in blood and wearing a crazed look in his eyes, was beating the director with his own severed arm.
Motherfucker!
Will scrambled to pull him back.
Wait, no, he was a good guy.
Matt continued to wail on Spielbergo with his severed arm.
What are you talking about? This asshole was literally just trying to kill us, and Bridge of Sighs fucking sucked.
He took one last swing and then dropped his arm next to Spielbergo's body. One of the agents poked the body with the toe of his shiny black Oxford. He cracked a slight smile and slowly put his silenced pistol back into his jacket. The group stood just outside the monitor tent. The smell of sulfur still hung thick in the air. Will scratched the back of his head.
Well, fuck.
One of the CIA guys grinned. He patted Will on the shoulder and then pulled him in close. How would you boys like to direct the next Estefan Spielbergo film? Will seemed a little taken aback. He glanced at Matt, who had retrieved his grill from the ocean and was already heating up some coals. The CIA agent reached out his hand. What do you say, director? Will hesitated for a beat before taking the agent's hand and shaking it. The four of them huddled around the grill, chatting and laughing, as the brilliant sun set at the edge of the ocean. The end.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the QAnon Anonymous podcast. Please go to patreon.com/QAnonAnonymous and subscribe for $5 a month to get a whole second episode every week, plus access to our entire archive of premium episodes. There are over 70 of them currently. When you subscribe, you help us stay advertising free and editorially independent. Join us on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/QAnonAnonymous. For everything else, we have QAnonAnonymous.com, where you'll find a link to get merch, as well as a bunch of free shit like access to our Discord community, our infamous Lost episodes, and even music from our soundtrack.
Listener, until next week.
May the deep dish bless you.
And keep you.
It's not a conspiracy. It's fact.
And now, today's auto cue.
Those of you know me, have followed my Twitter. You also saw me tweet out a rumor that I heard. I couldn't verify that James Comey was going to be picked up on Sunday and arrested. The source told me he has had connections to the arrest warrants, and through another person that said that James Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page were supposed to be picked up on Sunday with with Clapper on Monday and Brennan on Tuesday. Now, of course, I haven't seen anything in the news about this, and I have stressed over and over it was a rumor. Other people are reporting that it's happening. I'm not. I can't verify that. But I called my source last night about it, and I said, what do you think's going on? And he said, well, he's had somebody, another person that he's connected with, following James Comey for a while. He lives around the block, and he said James Comey was last seen in a supermarket on April 24th, and that was the last time he was seen in public. His family and his house have been empty since April 24th. Maybe they're on vacation, who knows? I don't know. Or maybe the U.S. Marshals have him, don't know. Maybe he's a cooperating witness, I have no idea. But it's interesting that he's been out of sight, yet he's tweeting cryptic images, pictures of roses. This is just like him standing in the cornfield and putting another strange picture up and telling the world it gives him comfort to see his garden, which that's lovely, James, really lovely. Your days are numbered, my friend.